Welcome back, and I want to thank you all for continuing to stay on this journey with me, the journey of a Jamaican Alzheimer's story, the story of my mother, Amita Gordon. Now, this week I will be continuing with what I left off on last week. Last week's video was about the time when mommy disappeared for a few hours. Now, let's continue from there. After this episode, after this situation of mommy's disappearance, everything changed. To be honest, it was a whole different ball game now. It meant that we had to find a caregiver for her, because she being away means that it can happen again. Having a caregiver now meant more additional expenses that we were not prepared for, because mommy seemed to have been functioning fairly well on her own up to this point, and this was a new experience. And I must tell you, this change just came out of the blue. This was a drastic change. This was now something new that we were totally unprepared for. So financially, it would have been a struggle. So the first thing we did was to arrange for her to stay with our neighbor next door, who already knew that, she was experiencing Alzheimer's, had little challenges, even though our neighbor was not completely aware of all of what came with Alzheimer's. She was mommy's friend, and so she never had any objection, because there are times when mommy would visit her. So there was no objection to her staying there. However, after a few months, it became evident that it would not work. Why? Because mommy now decided to go next door and try to take over the people's household. She thought she was at home. She wanted to cook. She wanted to tidy up. She wanted to tell them how to do what, where to go, stuff like that. And she being there was like having a 2-year-old in their house. And honestly, it would not have worked. So after a few months, we had to move on to plan B. Plan B was having her stay with a very good friend of hers. They had been friends for years, long before I was born, actually. And they knew each other very well. However, this meant now leaving out a little early to take mommy to this location. And to be honest, it was going well. It was going quite fine. But then, one night, actually it was the 13th, it was the 14th of February 2013, mommy became ill in the wee hours of the morning, and we had to rush her to the hospital. I'm sorry. So this now was a whole new drama, because she was hospitalized. And with this hospitalization, we started to learn additional things about Alzheimer's. When they're in a new environment, they do not respond very well. It's like a frightening experience for them. When they're among persons they don't know, they get very scared, they get very irritable because they are scared. And so the nurses and doctors had a challenge, which meant for some of the time, mommy had to be restrained. And if you have a relative suffering from Alzheimer's and they're hospitalized, you'll realize sometimes they have to restrain them in order to control their movements, or in order to be able to effectively take care of them. So mommy had to be restrained, but there are times when she was calm and she wasn't. But then came the realization that she was in hospital, which was telling her that she was the nurse on duty, because in years gone by, she was a nurse before she retired. Yeah, she was a nurse. So when evening came, mommy thought that her shift was over and it was time to pack her bag and leave. This meant big drama now at the hospital. They couldn't get her to leave, and she was complaining that the nurse to relieve her didn't come, and she packed her bags and she kept going through the door. So now my mother created a new situation at the hospital, which meant that the door to the ward where she was located had to be kept closed as soon as evening came. And that wasn't really convenient for anybody. So it was recommended that one of us had to come and stay with her in the hospital in order for them to keep her and treat her. So my sister Winsome took leave from work and then lived at the hospital. I don't remember how long, maybe 2 weeks or so, or 3. For as long as mommy was hospitalized, my sister had to live there in a chair right beside her bed. She would be there Monday to Friday. I would relieve her Friday evening, and she would come back on Sunday evening so that I could go home and go to work.